This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. It's that time of the year where we like to preview the rest of the AFC North. We spent so much time talking about the Cleveland Browns here that it's time to look outside of the lens, see what people outside of the Cleveland Browns are thinking and what people who aren't covering the Browns think of this team as well. And I think the Browns and the Ravens are unique this year in this way. They're kind of a mystery box team, right? Where you're like, you see all of this talent. You know they have all of this talent. But there's so many critical changes at key spots that you really don't know what to expect from the talent that you have there. And when I look at the Ravens, I look at a team that for whatever reason has, I guess you could say, underachieved the last couple of years. Based on the expectations after 2019 was this team was going to go straight to, Super Bowl contenders, stuff like that. And it's just been kind of not wallowing, but kind of hanging around there in the conversation, but not necessarily separating. Now you get to this year, they made some changes, especially at offensive coordinator, brought in Todd Monken. They finally made an investment at wide receiver. It seems like they're really taking that position seriously now. And the defense we know is really good from last year. They're bringing that same defense over. Let's start with the offense. Now, I'm familiar with Todd Monken. He used to be one of the offensive coordinators in Cleveland. I'm interested to know how much of this offense is truly Todd Monken and how much of this is still hey, we're going to carry over some of the run schemes that worked really well with Greg Roman. You know what I mean? How much of this is that different than what you guys have done in years past?
I think that's why it's super important to incorporate both, a good mix of both, because there has been a lot of success in the run game with the Baltimore Ravens, but there has been a need to improve a lot significantly in the pass game for the Baltimore Ravens. You talked about it earlier about some of the changes that the Ravens made this offseason, and you spoke about them finally investing into the wide receiver position. Now, and it's interesting, and we'll see how everything plays out. It's interesting, Odell Beckham Jr. And I know when a player goes to a new team and gets a nice fat deal, they could say a lot of stuff. They're gonna say all the right stuff, and I get that. It's a business, but we'll see how it plays out, because Odell Beckham Jr. he talked about how maybe his time in Cleveland and Todd Monken's time in Cleveland just wasn't the right fit or the right time for either one of them. Because Todd Monken went on to Georgia, became a two-time national champion, and Odell Beckham, he ended up going to the Rams and helping them out to win that Super Bowl. And now they both ended up in Baltimore. So we'll see how things go. But as far as the offense itself, I do expect there to be a lot more passing. I do expect there to be a lot more of the Ravens just using the entire field. Because a lot of what the Ravens did not even last year, but just in years past in the passing game, it was condensed. There was a lot of guys all in the same areas and whatnot, and it just felt like the passing game at a lot of times it could be limited. And that would be frustrating to watch. It'd be frustrating to watch the lack of investment in true quality wide receivers. That was extremely frustrating to watch, and just to see that year after 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 year and expect different results. It was tough. It was tough. I was really hoping, you brought up the 2019 season where Lamar got the MVP. I was really hoping after that year that it was all right, Lamar done showed you what he can do. Now, you know what, Ravens, he's only going into the third year of his rookie deal. Let's really invest in wide receiver like crazy. Let's invest in this offense like crazy, but they never really did. Some of the signings that they made over the years under Lamar Jackson's rookie contract, Sammy Watkins, Dez Bryant, Sammy Watkins again, Deshaun Jackson, Demarcus Robinson. So, I mean, you see how that went. But something that you brought up where you talked about with the Ravens, they sort of underachieved, and there's a lot of unknown with them. And that's what it has been, because after that 2019 season, it went 14-2, got beat up in the playoffs, which was ugly, but a regular season was a beautiful thing. So there were a lot of high hopes for the Baltimore Ravens. And in 2020, 2021, and 2022, it's just we haven't had closure. We haven't had proper closure because 2020 regular season good, made it to the playoffs, and then faced the Bills, beat the Titans and then faced the Bills. And Patrick McCarry was at center, snapped the ball too high, right over Lamar Jackson's head. Lamar Jackson goes to pick it up. Then Bills defender tackles him, and he hits his head on a turf and out with a concussion for the rest of the playoff game. So we never got to see how that would have ended with a Lamar Jackson. 2021, playing the Cleveland Browns, and then Jock chasing him. Lamar runs out of the pocket, throws it. It's a completion, but Jock tackled him. He falls down and he gets the I think the high ankle sprain injury. So that was the end of that season. Then 2022 was I think in the Broncos game. I think that's when he got hurt, I believe, but he missed the rest of that season. So we just haven't had closure, and it's not a coincidence that with Lamar Jackson, the Ravens, whether they were top in the AFC or top in the division, when he was playing, they were at the top. But then when he went out, we didn't get proper closure on the season. Because it would be one thing if, like, all right, Lamar Jackson, they finish the regular season, get to the playoffs, and they lose, however, and then if that happened the past couple of years, okay, cool, it is what it is. But we just haven't got to see that yet. And then watching that playoff game last year, oh man, it just makes it so much worse, because with Tyler Huntley, like, we lost to the Bengals by like 7. It was right there in the thick of things. And with John Harbaugh, we've seen it over the years. Like with John Harbaugh, even if the team is depleted, even if it's a lot of people injured, one thing that John Harbaugh will do is have the team fight. They won't always win, but most times they will not get absolutely destroyed. And I don't want to take a moral victory, anything like that, because moral victories, they don't get you anything. They still losses at the end of the day and at the beginning of the day. But just to think about if Lamar would have been there, then how much different things could have been. So when speaking about the offense specifically, a big thing that is a big unknown is just injuries, and with health, like us as Ravens fans, and I think just the NFL in general, are looking at this team like they could really do something, but they have to be healthy. Their health is wealth. And I mean, you could say that about any team, but especially with the Baltimore Ravens, because there's just been such a lack of closure. With Odell Beckham Jr., missed the entire last year. And even he had injury issues even before last year.
He's had injury issues. I think he ended every season he had in Cleveland with needing some type of offseason surgery. And even going back to New York, he missed that last year in New York with ankle injury. He had a knee injury, I think, the year before. So Odell, I mean, like, it's been almost like a solid like half a decade of injuries for him. And that's the second thing I want to talk about with this Ravens team, because you can't talk about the Ravens underachieving the last few years without talking about injury, right? It's just been there with the Baltimore Ravens. You mentioned this stuff with Lamar Jackson. There's been stuff with Ronnie Stanley, up and down. All the running backs, right, have had these issues pop up. And when you look at the Ravens right now, it's like, okay, Lamar Jackson, Odell Beckham, that's really good. But what's Odell Beckham going to be? And even if Odell Beckham's back to what he used to be, how much can you depend on him to be there every week? They brought in Jadeveon Clowney. I mean, this is another guy who has a long history of missing games. Even though in Cleveland, I'll give him his credit, he didn't miss that many games in Cleveland. When you look at this team in general, given what their issues have been, do you think that that's the biggest thing that could derail this Ravens season? Is the injuries that have popped up time and time again? And specifically at wide receiver, if Odell, let's be positive here, benefit it out. Odell Beckham comes back, he plays well. Because there's no reason he shouldn't be good. What happens if you're relying on him and he's not healthy? Like, how important is he to that role at wide receiver, to where if he's not out there, is that going to take out a significant element of this offense? Because I could say Flowers, who's an underneath guy. You have Rashad Bateman, who you're going to use to kind of like attack that middle part of the field. But with Odell's not there, does that significantly change how this team can attack?
It could. But at the same time, this is why I'm glad they finally, truly invested in the wide receiver position. We obviously hope Odell Beckham Jr. is out there for 17 plus games and playoffs and whatnot. And he can do his thing and get back to the Odell Beckham Jr. that we know that he's capable of, what he's done in the past. But yeah, does have his long injury history. Rashad Bateman, he's a sort of do-it-all receiver too. But in his short career, he has an injury history. He's been significant time too. But Zay Flowers, I think could have a big role. Nelson Agholor as well. The Ravens signed Nelson Agholor. That was the first receiver that they signed this offseason. And then somebody who was looking good early on last year, but then the way that they used him, they used him so inconsistently, was Devin Duvernay. Devin Duvernay is somebody that really stepped up last year, really as a number two receiver, number two receiver. And he looked good doing it. But then when Rashad Bateman went out with injury last year, Devin Duvernay was in like this weird spot, and the Ravens the way that they use him was it was really inconsistent. But now with the receivers that the Ravens have, they complement each other well. And they have backup just in case one guy goes down or whatnot. Hopefully none do. But they do have guys that are ready to come in, step up. And then, of course, we have some receivers, but Mark Andrews is still in the building too. And Mark Andrews, obviously, a huge part of what Lamar Jackson does, a huge part of what the Ravens do. So even though the offense is expected to change, Mark Andrews is still expected to be a really big part of that.
Now, when I hear this Todd Monken offense, the one concern I have with Lamar in it is the way that offense likes to attack sometimes from a passing perspective is a lot of shots downfield. Now, Lamar, I think people kind of get so wrapped up into the conversation of if he can pass, if he can't, that we don't break down the finer delicacies of his actual ability to throw the football, where he's strong at, where he's not, because it feels like you have to argue whether he can do it when he's proven he can do it, right? And I think there's areas where Lamar's really good, like that middle of the field RPO, especially like timing stuff on the outside. He's really good at those intermediate to short throws that he has to make. Where I've seen him have his worst throws is when he's like has to uncork it downfield, right? That's where you've seen some of his more, where somebody will clip him and put it in a clip thing and make it seem like he can't throw on target. I do worry that, one, you look at the Todd Monken offense, interceptions tend to go up with that, right? Because you're going downfield, you're taking more chances. You look at Jameis Winston, Baker Mayfield. Obviously, Lamar is more talented than both of those guys, but interceptions have gone up with those quarterbacks in that system. And I'm wondering, has Todd Monken changed his approach? Is this still, we're worrying about the deep slice down the field when you look at what they're doing in practice? Or is this something more akin to what they were doing in Georgia, where it's like, smaller steps, we're going to just try to take what the defense is giving you?
Yeah, it seems like it's a good mix of both, because whenever we hear like reports coming out of practice and training camp and whatnot, we hear about them talking about the offense just getting the ball out of the quarterback's hand a lot quicker. But excuse me, but then there's a lot of deep shots too. Then we heard some days, hey, Lamar's been sharp with the deep ball. He's been on point. Then we heard some other days, hey, Lamar was off with his deep ball. It wasn't on point today. So I think, the deep shots are definitely going to be there. Something that I think is very, very important to when you think about Lamar Jackson and throwing the football. Everything that Lamar Jackson does when it comes to throwing the football, especially bad, is going to get emphasized. In the past, it was emphasized big time. The reason being because with the Ravens, when you think about the Ravens, you think running the football, defense, running the football, defense. You don't think about passing. That's because they were not really a passing team like that. So his attempts, his throws, they were limited. And they did not take, like, say, for instance, if it's Patrick Mahomes, it's a Josh Allen, it's a Tua, it's a lot of other quarterbacks. If they miss a deep throw, it's not going to get as emphasized because they're going to come throw that ball 20, 30 more times. They're going to have a lot more shots. But with a Lamar Jackson and Ravens offense, he misses a deep throw. It's like, oh, man, oh, no, that's bad. Oh, my goodness, I can't believe he missed that, because there's not going to be that many opportunities. So hopefully with this new offense, they can really take the opportunities, not saying pass the ball 24/7, but just the way that, and not even that the offense needs to be balanced, but it just needs to be in sync. Obviously, it goes game by game basis. Depends on what the defense is doing. It depends on what they're giving up, like you mentioned. So with this change at coordinator, one of the biggest things that we're hoping Todd Monken brings is just to be allow the offense to get in a better flow of the game. Yeah, hey, there are going to be some deep shots that Lamar misses on. It happens, but there are deep shots that every quarterback misses on. And I think it's very, very important that if he misses on a deep shot, you're not like, all right, we're done. We're done with deep shots for the game. We're done with the deep throws for the game. No, man, you got to still take those chances because that's all part of the game. And that could help Lamar. That could help the offense. That could help just build confidence in all of that. Another thing, too, that I think is important is the personnel. Last year, when you think about the deep ball with the Ravens, because it was highlighted that Lamar missed a lot of deep balls when it came to the Ravens last year. Because he missed some, but again, it was the context was important because he didn't really have that many attempts too. But who he was throwing to? He was throwing to Demarcus Robinson, and Demarcus Robinson, he got some decent speed, but the chemistry was just off a little bit, not too bad. But there will be some drops as well. There will be some routes like I remember the Tylan Wallace specifically. There was one route where Tylan Wallace had the guy beat, but he slowed up on the route, and I was like, oh man, why did he slow up? Because when we look at it live, you can't really see these things. But then you look at film and whatnot, and you get to see a lot of the background. Now there were some where Lamar Jackson just straight up missed. There was some where he just straight up missed. So can't take anything from that. But there's a lot of other factors that go into. I know with Devin Duvernay, he got some speed. He got some nice speed. But as far as the deep ball tracking, that's something that he had struggled with. But so now with Odell Beckham Jr., he could track a deep ball. With Rashad Bateman, we know he can as well. Nelson Aguilar is known for taking the top off of defense. Zay Flowers got some good speed. He could do it as well. So to have receivers, a good mix of receivers that can do it, but also to have a good mix of just consistently taking the shots, not taking a shot and if you miss, just giving up on it, but consistently taking those shots, I think that'll make a big difference in a positive way.
Yeah, let's talk about the defense. I think there's not really a lot of questions about them, except for when you look at edge and you're kind of relying on Ojabo and Odafe to kind of step up, the double O's over there to step up and really be successful there. And you got Jadeveon Clowney, who, look, if you're looking for Jadeveon to be your sack leader, he's never going to be that guy for you, right? But if you just need Jadeveon to play a role, and he's willing to play that role, because sometimes that was an issue his second year in Cleveland where he felt like he shouldn't be deferring to Myles Garrett. I don't know what world he was living in, but he felt like that was ridiculous. Sometimes, I think Jadeveon's the type of dude, as long as the team's winning, you're going to be straight with him, right? Like, he's going to be able to do what he wants, and you're going to be able to do it. But if the team loses for a couple years, Jadeveon's going to be a little bit grumpy about that, right? And when you look at that edge room, it reminds me, I was joking about this with Sonny on AFC North Talk. It's like the first time we got together, he was talking about this pass rush by committee that they was going to have to do with Tyus Bowser here. And we're going to have, was it Judon? Before we do Judon was good. They're going to have Judon here. They're going to have this committee that they're going to rush a passer with. And it ended up being like Judon became the guy in that one, right? I think you guys had just lost to Darius Smith, right? 2019 was when y'all lost him. Yeah. So Now, by the way, he's back in Cleveland. Now y'all have a similar edge rush situation than what's been there before. Who do you see stepping up and becoming the main guy in that rotation? Because there's always a guy, right, for the Ravens. But who's going to be the guy that steps up? Is it going to be a D tackle? Is it going to be, maybe it's going to be Pat Queen that's going to be taking a lot of snaps, edge rushing, because he was really good at that last year? Or do you see Ojabo or Odafe stepping up in that role?
I really could see Odafe Oweh and Justin Madubuike. Odafe Oweh from the outside, Justin Madubuike bringing interior pressure. But that's one thing that's scary to think about, because we have just so much unknown when it comes to the pass rush right now. Tyus Bowser, who you just mentioned, he hasn't practiced because he's still injured. So he's still out right now. And David Ojabo, yeah, he's technically in his second year, but last year he played in like a game and change. So it's just a lot of unknown about him. Odafe Oweh is going into his third year. And he's been close, but he hasn't turned that corner yet. We're hoping that the third year will be the charm. So we'll see about him. But it's so much that we just really don't know. Jadeveon Clowney, is Jadeveon Clowney with the Ravens, the way that they structured his contract, they structured it really nice, because it's a 1 year, $6 million deal, but it's really a 1 year, $2.5 million deal. That's the base. So that's what he's getting paid regardless. But then he has incentives. He has sack incentives. So if he gets 5 sacks, then he gets an extra $500,000. If he gets 700 sacks, then he gets $1 million. And then if he gets 9 sacks, then he gets $1.75 million. Then he also has incentives for playing time too. So Ravens were like, hey, we're going to protect ourselves with Jadeveon Clowney, but hey, if you want to go off, you'll get paid for it. So hopefully he can earn them incentives, but we'll see. I'm like 9 sacks for Jadeveon Clowney. I'm not expecting that. I would love it, but I'm not expecting it, but we'll see. But anyway, it's just so much unknown at pass rush. And I think that what you said, Sonny talked about a while back as far as a pass rush by committee, because last year, and Ravens have struggled with pass rush for a while. It got a little better last year, but they struggled with it for a while. And so I could see them just blitzing, just to bring a few extra guys here and there to get pressure. But again, you know what? Hopefully they won't have to, because again, we've only seen preseason pass rush. So we've seen limited David Ojabo, really haven't seen much Odafe Oweh. So none of Tyus Bowser yet. Obviously none of Jadeveon Clowney since he just got there. But so we haven't seen the starters yet. But as far as the backups and stuff, it hasn't looked too pretty. But we'll see. It's just one of those things we'll see. They did blitz Kyle Hamilton a few times last year, and he looked nice doing it. So I could just see them bringing different guys from different places. You mentioned a Patrick Queen, who is an excellent blitzer. So them just continuing to do that. If they can't consistently get there with 4, and of course, even if you can consistently get there with 4, you're gonna mix it up regardless. But I could see them doing that, where they just bring different guys in, a slot corner, a safety here, linebacker there, just to try to get some pressure and hopefully sacks too on opposing quarterbacks.
It's going to be interesting to see. Let's kind of take our lens to the rest of the division here, right? Because I talked about this before, but if you look at like the AFC in 2019 and then you fast forward to 2023, it's crazy how much changes in 4 years, right? Like, I don't know if Ryan Tannehill got worse, but I know that it became a lot more difficult to get to the second round of playoffs with Ryan Tannehill in the AFC than it was just 4 years ago. I like the level of play required to get there, the level of quarterback play to just get out your division in the AFC North is insane, because you have Cincinnati, who's been to 2 AFC championship games back to back. A Super Bowl previously, so very good team there. They haven't changed anything. They haven't lost anybody that critical to them yet. You look at this Browns team, they've been around. This core has been around since 2018. You know, when the quarterback plays good, they're going to be a good team. With Deshaun finally getting a full year, you're expecting him to be more back to his usual self. And he's going to be there for a full year. So if he is, it's not about 6 games at the end of the year. It's about the whole season. Right. You know, Lamar Jackson, obviously a MVP caliber quarterback, and then the Steelers are going to be still a solid team, right? They still got TJ Watt. You know, whatever Kenny Pickett turns into, they still have good players on both sides of the ball.
Right.
If you're the Ravens, what do you think that margin of it for error is, right? When you're installing these new pieces, when you're bringing in this new stuff, you know that you're gonna need to have a margin for error. But like, how much grace do you think the Ravens have to actually figure this stuff out during the season?
Nah, you ain't got no grace, man, because it's from jump. Like, you got to bring it from jump. You play the Bengals in week 2, so that division game is starting early for us. But yeah, like you talked about, the other teams, they're gonna bring it. Like, we know AFC North, it's usually never this runaway division where one team is just clearly levels ahead of everybody else by so far. Everybody got an opportunity. They really do. Ravens think that if they stay healthy, they got a shot. Bengals, they keep doing what they're doing, they got a shot. Browns, like you mentioned, with Deshaun Watson, now this will be his full season for him. Last year, obviously, with all the stuff, he just played a couple of games and whatnot, and there were some ups and there were some downs, but now he'll have a full off season and a full season with the Browns, and we know what Deshaun Watson can be. And then with the Steelers too, they never put a pushover team. So AFC North is always tough. So nobody really has margin for error. And especially if one of the teams get on a streak, they get on a win streak, then that could be real dangerous for the other 3. So with the Ravens specifically, they just gotta be on point. And with them installing this new offense, with them having new weapons, with there being a lot of new with the Baltimore Ravens specifically on offense, it's important that they come out hot. Now, another thing too, I forgot to mention earlier, with the offense, there being a lot of change with the offense. I think a lot more pressure has been put on them with the temporary loss of Marlon Humphrey, since he's supposed to be out for the beginning of the season because he has a foot injury. He had to get surgery on. Harbaugh, they said he should be back early on in the season, but we'll see how early that is. So for as long as he's out, then that puts a lot more pressure on the offense to really put up a lot of points. And because you lost the best cornerback on the team, in my opinion, the best defensive player on the Baltimore Ravens. So that's a big blow. But the defense, just a mix of the defense and the offense putting up points that can help lessen that blow. But as far as any room for like slipping up, anything like that, nah, you got none at all.
Yeah, it's gonna be a tight race. It definitely is. I was going over all the teams in the AFC, and you forget about teams like Miami, right? We've been talking about like the Jets and the Bills and the Chiefs and all these other teams. You forget like, oh, there's Miami, there's Jacksonville that can step up. Who knows? Like everything I've seen from Anthony Richardson in the preseason has made me encouraged about, maybe they might be better than people expect. Who knows? The Texans might be better than people expect. A lot of young players, young quarterbacks in this division, in this conference. Everybody seems to be under the age of 28. So true, it's not going anywhere. You look at the AFC or the NFC, it is like there's Jalen Hurts, and that's pretty much it, right? There's Jalen Hurts, like maybe Dak, if you're still a believer in Dak, and then there's like guys like Kirk Cousins and guys who you're not necessarily freaking out about when you match up with those quarterbacks, right? But all of the ones that you have to freak out about. I mean, like Russ still here, right? Like maybe he turns into something, like it's a crazy situation the AFC has. So it reminds me of the Western Conference back in the day, in the NBA, where like Kobe would be like the 7th seed, and you're like, what's going on? But it's going to be interesting to see what happens this year. If you had to say one thing when you look at each team, a new fear that you have, right? Like of playing this team in the division, what would that be? For each team?
That's a really good question. I really could say, really for all 3, could say the pass rush. because I feel like everybody else's in the division pass rush is better, and it's a lot more known, and it is a more sure thing than the Ravens is right now. The Ravens got a lot of question marks at pass rush, but Cleveland, Myles Garrett, Darius Smith, like, yeah, we know about those guys. Steelers got T.J. Watt and Cam Hayward, Alex Highsmith. And there's another guy that was showing out in the preseason too. But so we know about them. Then
Nick
with
Herbig.
the Bengals, that might be it. It might be it. But then the Bengals, they got Hubbard, they got Trey Hendrickson. So yeah, they got it too. And with the Ravens, it's like, oh, okay, who's gonna be it for us? So I would say pass rush. But if I got to go like specifics, with the Bengals, obviously that big three, as far as their wide receivers, and again, like we were just talking about, Marlon Humphrey just being out, that's gonna be tough. Ooh.
Especially those first, because you play the Browns that first few weeks.
Oh goodness gracious, man, we're gonna see, man. But
and it's funny you bring up the edge rusher stuff, because I'm like, man, if there's not somebody who earns their paycheck like Ronnie Stanley. Right. Ronnie Stanley is like, thank goodness TJ Watt plays on the right side, right? Because imagine like back-to-back weeks, because that happens all the time where they schedule the Steelers and the Browns for the Ravens back-to-back. It's like, all right, you got Miles this week, and you're like, okay, I got to be serious. I got to make sure I'm paying attention, know what I'm passing off. And then like after you do that for a whole week, all right, here comes TJ. Here comes Trey. There's no break. There's no break if you're the Ravens left tackle, because there's always somebody coming that's really good, or they're gonna run these pick and rolls that they like to run with Pittsburgh with Cam and Alex. It's just it's got to be a tough job to be Ronnie Stanley, because least if you're the Steelers or the Browns, like at least one of them dudes on your team. If you're Ronnie, it's like, well, man, every time we played it, 4 games, 6 games a year, dog. It is what it is. I got to see Miles again. I got to see TJ again.
Hey, that's tough right there, man. But
I never questioned why they paid that man the money that they paid him, because they would look around and were like, we gonna need a left tackle, because Cincinnati, like the biggest thing that's caught Cincinnati is the fact that they're not stable at those positions, right? Because you look at the Super Bowl, Aaron Donald ran roughshod, kind of cost them the Super Bowl that year. And then you look at last year, it was Chris Jones. You look at their issues, the one team they can't seem to beat regularly in the division, the Cleveland Browns, is because Myles Garrett turns into like prime LT against the Cincinnati Bengals, and tends to blow up their games. It's like that's been the issue with them. And the Ravens, they are in a better situation to kind of withstand that kind of pressure. But still, it's like so much. You know what I mean? Like so many talented players getting thrown at you on that end. It's got to be a difficult thing to just hold up through the year, especially when you're Ronnie and you've been injured before.
Yeah. So again, health all across the board, because we got some guys with some histories. So hopefully history will not repeat itself and it can rewrite itself this season.
Imagine be a Daniel Fale, getting thrown in there your rookie year, and they're like, all right, man, it's Miles this week.
And he's so big. He's a giant, man. Daniel Fale, he's a tower. But those guys that could dip under him, it's like, man, what do you do?
What you gonna do when the dude's 6'6" and can dip under you too? Like that's the thing with Miles. It's like, what that shouldn't happen. Like, but it's. I saw what was it Ngakoue? I think he was the rookie for the Panthers, and like the whole game, you can see his confidence building up because Miles ain't got a sack yet. And then Miles like decides, all right, gets 2 sacks back to back and forces 2 fumbles back to back.
He was probably just playing with him early on, and probably just out there cardio or something. And then decide, let me turn it on real quick.
Ngakoue was like, yeah, man, I'm thinking I'm good out here. It's Myles Garrett. I'm shutting him down. And it was like, no, he's just deciding not to get there. Like it's one of those things where it's like, you love to hear those stories from like left tackles on when they run up against edge rushers early in their career, because those are usually some great welcome to the NFL stories.
Oh yeah, so hopefully no welcome to the NFL moments for us, but I mean it happens to every team, so we'll see which players get welcomed in a not so good way, but it's part of the business. As long as they win more than they lose, that's what matters. But yeah, man. As far as Bengals, I would say the big three, the wide receivers, Browns. I'm gonna go offense too, and just Deshaun Watson just building more confidence and just getting better. And the possibility of him getting back to his old self. A lot of times when I think about the Browns, I forget about Amari Cooper. And he's really good. I mean, he's been really good. He's good with the Raiders. He's good with the Cowboys, and he's made his good moments with the Browns too. So Amari Cooper's a really, really good receiver. So he's a problem. And I remember, I think it was last year, where he had made Marcus Peters look foolish. And he beat him bad for like a touchdown last year, but I think they called it incomplete. They called it out of bounds or something.
I think it was an OPI. It was an OPI. Oh, okay, yeah, we were talking about the first game. Yeah, Jacoby Brissett should have been touchdown at the end of the game, and yeah, I remember. I remember that one. Browns lost that game.
So yeah, that's what it was then. I knew it was something, but just the fear of Deshaun Watson just getting back to his old self and with good weapons. And then there's still Nick Chubb, and Nick Chubb is obviously always a problem because he's one of the best running backs in the league. And I mean, you could make a case for him being best running back in the league, because I mean that's another conversation for another day. But
that goes to my one point with the Browns is like, for years I've asked you this question. It's always been Nick Chubb. What happens when Nick Chubb kind of becomes we got to do something about that too for a defensive coordinator? Like, I don't know what that looks like. We're just like, and then your ability to adjust to a Nick Chubb changes, right? Because you used to be able to just go heavy in the box and just play the personnel game, but now it's like, what are we gonna do if Nick Chubb gets going? All right, we're gonna switch to base. You know what I mean? Roquan, you gonna hover over him, but somebody gotta make a play. Like, it's not gonna be we can put everybody in position to make a play anymore. It's gonna be somebody's got to do something in a tough spot, because we can't put a bunch of dudes in the box. Maybe we can put 8, maybe. You know what I mean? If we ain't getting killed through the air, but your ability to adjust is gonna be severely changed. And if you do go out there and base, now you got Roquan in a situation where you can kind of get him in the slot, go one-on-one with him with the receiver. You could put Elijah Moore there and try to attack him that way. So it's always like chess pieces when it comes to football, and it's interesting to see like how those chess pieces change based on just having a good quarterback back there.
Yeah, that's important too. That being able to adjust both on offense and defense. And then last but definitely not least, the Steelers. And I think it's just Kenny Pickett taking another step. He showed us his clutch last year. I mean, like, where Najee Harris beat Roquan Smith for that game-winning touchdown. And that was painful. But so just seeing the emergence of him, what he can do. George Pickens, who has been killing it this preseason. Kenny Pickett been killing it this preseason too. So and I know it is preseason, but still, you got to start somewhere. And if you can roll that over and carry that over to the regular season, you're going to be going against more starters and whatnot, but that's a big confidence booster, and that could start you off right. So, yeah, that would be it with the Steelers. And just really that defense, and TJ Watt just continuing to be disruptive as he always is when he's healthy. So, yeah, man, every AFC North team, they bring something different, but they all bring something. So, Ravens just, they got to be on point this year, man. And, again, biggest thing for them, the biggest enemy, in my opinion, and I've said this all offseason, would be health. If they can defeat that enemy, health, then they'll be in good shape.
All right, Engraven, thank you for coming on. Make sure y'all check out Engraven. I'll have them tagged with the little @ feature in the title. When YouTube introduces new stuff, I'll be wary, but sometimes they introduce some good features, and this is a couple good features they've released. So, that's a good one right there. I was worried about the @ stuff, but the @ work right there. We're going to throw the @ sign in the title. We're going to be able to click on it, get to Engraven. It's so much easier than being like copying the link and everything else down there. So make sure y'all check out Engraven. He does great coverage at the Ravens. He also talks about all 32 NFL teams, just in general NFL breaking news there. I got to get a game of Madden with you this year, man. Are you on PlayStation?
I got to buy it first. I haven't bought it yet. You got it? Is it good?
I got it. I just been playing the mini games. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like, I've wanted the mini games back so long, but I've been playing the mini games. Superstar mode's cool because you don't got to skip as many cutscenes as last year with the face of the franchise stuff. You used to drive me crazy. It spent like 30 minutes, like trying to skip and then you get a cutscene that's unskippable, and it's like 10 minutes, and they want you to do dialogue, and it's like, oh god.
Yeah, I didn't even mess with that last year, man.
No,
I only played regular last year and like connected franchise mode, and that was it.
Yeah. I'm just trying to get back into the Madden swing of things, and it's tough. They want you to press all these buttons when you pass the ball. They have like a meter now. I'm like, dog, give me the classic. Hold the button down for bullet, tap it for a touch pass. That's all I need right there. I don't need any more precision than that. Let the game do the rest. I'm not actually playing quarterback, but yeah. We got to get a game in at some point this year. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I'm down,
but thank you for coming on. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night.